What's up, everybody? Welcome into Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. We are live here on a Thursday, 3 days away from Bears versus Rams in Week 4. A pretty pivotal game for Matt Eberflus, in my opinion. We'll kind of talk about that as we go throughout the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Sorry for scheduling the stream late. Got sidetracked with a couple other things, but we're rocking, we're rolling, we're ready to go. Shout out your city. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We got C. Breezy, Cullen in the house. We got some FGBs coming in, always FGB. Chi-Town 65 hanging out, Tim and Kawani. We got Jeeping in Phoenix, DJ KV in Chicago. Sedalia, Missouri from Robert. Number 31 defense, you cannot lose this game. I said you couldn't lose last week, and you found a way. So it is what it is, Lacora. Colorado Springs from Jason. Popka, Florida from Chris. Charlotte, North Carolina is where Norman Nagy's watching. Denver, Colorado for Jeff. The DMV for Chi-Town. Let's see. Chesterton, Indiana. What's up, Stone? We got Fort Wayne, Indiana from Mike. Virginia from Michael. We got D1 in Chicago. We need this game from Robert. Yeah, Colin, this feels like a pivotal one. You drop this one to get to 1-3. I mean, obviously you still have Carolina and the Jags after that, so some winnable games still, but you're getting behind the 8 ball if you lose this game.
Yeah, I mean, being 1-3 is not far off from being 0-4 or, 1-3 for other divisions. I mean, the Jags, the Bengals, and the Titans, I believe, are the only teams that are 0-3, so they're trying to fight to where Chicago is now, and that's not good if you're a Bears fan. And look, if you win this game, you sit there, you kind of build some momentum, you maybe, pick up a win against the Panthers, pick up a win against the Jags, you're sitting pretty. So this could be kind of a steamrolling effect. Like, if you want to hit your stride, you need to hit it in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is a potential swing game because if you lose this game, you're not feeling like you really can beat anybody, probably. I mean, Carolina, that game, the pressure mounts incredibly for that game. If you win this game, though, like, to your point, like, the next two you probably should win. I mean, Carolina's still Carolina. I get Andy Dalton is better than Bryce Young, but they had to put Adam Thielen on IR. Deontay Johnson's banged up this week. We'll see what his status would be next week. And then you go to London to play the Jags, who look terrible. They look terrible. So 4-2 is still a possibility if you could just win this game somehow. I mean, this is, I predicted they'd start 2-2. I thought they'd win last week and lose this week. So pivotal game, but we'll see how it goes. Speaking of which, get your score predictions in. I'll have my full preview later on in the stream and my final score prediction, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. But if you guys got any score predictions, let me know in the comments section below what it is. Someone says, if Bill Belichick joins Chicago, will we go to the playoffs? Like, as the head coach? I don't know. I'm not big on hiring Belichick, that idea, personally, but I understand why some people would like to see it, but I am not in that camp. D1 says 27-14 Bears. Steven, 24-21 Bears. We got 28-10 Shy Man in there as well. Bears 27-10. 44-24 Bears. If Caleb Williams hangs 40 this week, that would be exciting. 31-2 Rams. I really hope. If they lose 31-2 this week, they might fire Matt Eberflus on the spot.
Yeah. Him and Shane Waldron may not be allowed to leave the stadium.
Yeah. They'll just die there. They'll just live there forever.
Maybe.
Bears 28, Rams 27, 27-24 Rams, 28-10 Rams. Man, a blowout loss would be problematic for this coaching staff, to say the least. There's no way around that. Speaking of which, is Sunday a must-win for Matt Eberflus? Why for yes and for no? I think you could make a strong argument that it is. Now, I don't think they'll fire him after this game, no matter what, 4 games into the season, but I think it could be like the start of the melting pot, potentially, if you were to lose this after coming off last week. And then you would, if you're evaluating through a month, if you lose this game, you're 1-3, you really should be 0-4. You should have lost to Tennessee in week 1, if we're being completely honest. So this is a pivotal game, and 90% of the votes say yes. John in the chat says yes. Harpoon says no. Sen says yes. Norman Nagy says yes. Ulrich says no. No, more so on Waldron for Christian. Maybe. But, man, the heat is going to ramp up if they lose this game.
Yeah. I mean, because here's the thing. If you're Matt Eberflus, bare minimum this next 3-game stretch, you got to go 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Have to. So if you lose that first one, the pressure just ramps up for those final 2 games.
Yep.
And, you did a video on 4Verge. Check it out if you haven't already. Talking about Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars.
He's been awful.
He has. But if he somehow, rounds it together and, looks like he did early last year against the Bears, I mean, that could be problematic. I'm not saying the Panthers are any, stalwart or anything, but with Andy Dalton, they look better than they did with Bryce.
They're at least formidable. I mean, look, the way the Bears are playing right now, no game is easy. I mean, no game's easy already in the NFL, but when you're struggling, every game is difficult. So, it's going to be a challenge. And by the way, you just got a few new guys on the injury report. We'll dive into that in a little bit as well. Lead with a $5 super says D-Rose retired today. What are your thoughts on him making the Hall of Fame? First of all, congrats to D-Rose. It's a shame that injuries derailed his career, especially in Chicago, but obviously won an MVP, brought a lot of good memories to the Windy City. I think he eventually gets in because the Basketball Hall of Fame is a little more lenient. And I don't want to offend longtime Bulls fans. I probably would not vote him in, especially not first ballot. He just, after the injuries, he wasn't the same. And before the injuries, the longevity, it wasn't long enough. Like, he would not, I'll put it this way, he would not get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame with that resume. But I think he has a good shot of getting into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I feel like
you got an MVP, you got a real shot.
No MVP up to this point that's like retired and been Hall of Fame eligible has not made it in.
Yeah, I think he gets in for that. He may not be first. I don't think he'll be first ballot.
Yeah,
but I do think.
I mean, if you and again, I don't want to get too much of a basketball talk because I know we're talking the Bears, but if you put his resume up with Tracy McGrady's, he's got a better resume, and Tracy McGrady's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So
for my standards, I could maybe vote him in like later on in his eligibility. I would not put him in first ballot, but I think based on who we've seen get into the Basketball Hall of Fame, he's deserving of getting in. So congrats on a good career that could have been a legendary career, but I do think the fact that he came back after those injuries and kind of reshaped his game and became a better shooter and became a solid player, at least he was never high-level all-star again. I think that speaks volumes because a lot of guys might have just walked away with the amount of money he already had and success. So kudos to D-Rose. Shyman54 says we already outcoached in pregame. Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to take a look at who has the edge across the board between the Bears and the Rams. I mean, the Rams from a coaching standpoint, you have to give them a significant advantage. I mean, significant advantage. So, yeah, that's, I think the Bears, especially having less injuries, although more have piled up the last couple days, probably should win, but coaching is a big deal. So that makes it a lot more difficult.
Which, they lost Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson.
They just replace.
Yeah, they just replace. Like, McVay's coaching tree is one of the best arguably in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's, that lopsided given the turnover that the Rams had is kind of alarming if you're a Bears fan.
Yeah, it's tough. Ultra Instinct says, does Waldron look bad due to scheme play calling, or is it bad O-line performance that makes the scheme look bad? I think it's a combination. I think the offensive line's really struggling. I do wonder, are there too many cooks in the kitchen with Chris Morgan as not only the O-line coach but also the run game coordinator. Thomas Brown's the pass game coordinator. Waldron's the play caller. Kerry Joseph's the quarterback's coach. Like, is it just too much? Whatever it is, it's not gelling, and it needs to soon. Otherwise, the Bears are going to be in trouble. Traquan Jones, of these offensive coordinators, Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnson, Adam Stevenich, and Joe Brady, who would you take on as a head coach? You know what's interesting about this list? Brady is kind of gaining some steam right now, I think.
Yeah, his name popped out to me.
Stenovich, he's the Packers guy, right? He doesn't call the plays. So I don't want a guy who doesn't call the plays. And you did that with Getsy. And he wasn't even good as an OC, much less a head coach. So if I had to rank these, I'd probably go Johnson 1, and then I'd think between Slowick and Brady, and then Stevenich wouldn't, I think it's actually Stenovich. He would not be on my list. You are, to me, if you're going to hire an offensive guy and you don't call the plays, you are immediately ineligible for this team. It's got to be someone who's called plays before or is currently calling plays. So, yeah, that's how I would rank that. All right, hit that like button, like this video. And by the way, if the Bears lose Sunday, might have to rip out our first Matt Eberflus replacements video next week. So buckle up, Flus. Better get this done. Like the video if you want the Bears to win on Sunday. And we will dive into today's segments, which are cover the latest Bears news and injury report from Halas Hall. And some injuries are piling up. So that could make Sunday tricky. We'll take your questions, #Bears or Super Chat. To get your questions answered on the show, if you Super Chat, you can jump to the start of the line, or you can use #Bears if you want to ask about Sunday's game, trade ideas, whatever the case may be. We got you covered. And then Bears versus Rams. Is this a must-win for Matt Eberflus on Sunday? We cover it all here on this show. So lock us in to Chicago Bears now. I'm Harrison Graham. Here's what we got coming up on Chicago Bears Now. Shane Waldron faces the music from Chicago media today, but did he reveal a red flag? We'll get into that. Plus, the latest injury updates, including a couple of new additions to the injury report. And Justin Fields kind of ripping the Bears as he joined his teammates Cam Heyward's podcast. Lot to cover here on Chicago Bears Now. Before we get to it, can we get to 103,000 subscribers ASAP? Crossed 100,000 recently. We appreciate your love and support, trying to keep it growing. Once you get to 100, you got that thirst for 200. So if you want daily Bears coverage, the latest news, rumors, updates, injuries, more, my opinions and analysis, hit that subscribe button right now. All right, Shane Waldron facing the music at Halas Hall today. He talks every Thursday, and the questions are starting to get tougher and tougher for Shane as the offense continues to struggle at this point in the season. And to his credit, I thought he kind of owned everything for the most part. Here's what he had to say on the 4th and 1 speed option call. He said, "Not getting into the schematics on every play, but I have to put us in a better position." And it's kind of like, yeah, I'll answer that one for you, Shane. You could just shred that play. This isn't college football. Trying to run a speed option to the edge with anyone other than Lamar Jackson and maybe Justin Fields, it's just not a play I'm interested in. Now, if you want to do a QB run in the red zone on the goal line, I don't have a problem with that, but just run QB power and use the back as an extra blocker because you're just not winning the numbers game there. So just a really, really poor play call and decision there. Shane on the running game as a whole said, "I think for us it's the rhythm of the game. Trusting it. We've done a great job in practice reps, but not executing in game." Close quote. And I've really thought about this more recently, and I heard this point being made on another podcast. I, moving forward, will not take reports about a running back or a running game out of practice, training camp, seriously ever again. It's pretty irrelevant. And you know why? Because they're not hitting. They're not tackling at practice and training camp anymore. The trenches play is pretty minimal. There's not a lot of contact. And all we heard out of camp, DeAndre Swift looks great. DeAndre Swift looks great. And you get out there and you get into these real games and you're hitting and guys are getting moved around. It's the worst running back in the league statistically. So I just, I really don't want to hear looks good in practice, especially when it comes to the running game anymore. That's proven to be irrelevant up to this point in time. And this is when I got frustrated because I was okay with a lot of Shane's answers today. And again, he owned it. He said it all starts with me, yada, yada, yada. He did what you need to do as a coach when things aren't going well. Hey, I've got to fix things. I got to figure it out. Well, he was asked about the goal line usage at running back and why Khalil Herbert was getting those opportunities. And he said that he's our short yardage back is essentially what he said. which is why he was in there on those goal-to-go situations before they brought DeAndre Swift back on the 4th and goal at the 1, which if you're going to make a change at that point, maybe go to your other more physical running back in Roschon Johnson, who should have been in there from the beginning. That, to me, is a red flag. That, to me, is not understanding your personnel. Now, there was kind of a little comment in there. Roschon's coming off an injury. Well, I saw Roschon Johnson in this game. He's breaking tackles left and right. And by the way, if he cannot handle a goal line touch or two with a lot of contact, he shouldn't be active. He's not healthy enough. If he is healthy enough to be active, it's got to be full go. So I don't really buy into that, and it scared me off a bit. I'm like, really? Khalil Herbert's the short yardage guy? Yeah, he's more physical than DeAndre Swift, but you have Roschon Johnson right there. And later in the game, when you used him more, he was breaking tackles. I don't understand this. And by the way, Herbert should be getting used more, but his role should not be he's our goal line back, and that's all he is. What are we talking about? When you took the job, did you not review what your players do well in prior years? I mean, it makes me think he doesn't know who Khalil Herbert is as a player. That was shocking, to say the least, when it comes to Shane Waldron and player personnel utilization, because why is Khalil Herbert your goal line back over Roschon Johnson? Makes no sense whatsoever. Johnson is a physical north-south runner that breaks tackles and falls forward. Unbelievable. How concerned are you with Shane Waldron at this point? Scale from 0 to 10, 0 being not at all Harrison. This is going to be peak Andy Reid soon. 10 being you're DEFCON 9 here. You're pretty damn terrified. I mean, the only reason I'm not going to say a 10 is because I do think the passing game is making progress, but I got to go a 9.5. I mean, I have major questions, major concerns, and if it continues to go down this path, I do wonder if Flus would consider a change there. All right, let's get to the injury stuff. Speaking of not great, some new additions here. Kevin Byard, who practiced in full yesterday, did not practice at all today with the back, and he's been a guy that's never missed a game in his career. Of course, the Bears signed him. He's got a back issue that flares up. So keep an eye on that throughout the rest of the week, tomorrow especially. Terell Smith still dealing with that hip. Darrell Taylor, knee/illness. He left yesterday with an illness. I don't know if he's got a serious knee issue or if it's more of the sickness. Hopefully it's the latter. Zacch Pickens still dealing with that groin. Andrew Billings, limited yesterday, did not practice today with the knee issue. I don't like that. Marcedes Lewis had his weekly rest day. Darnell Wright, if you want a positive trend, he didn't go yesterday. He was limited today, so that's good, as was Braxton Jones with his knee. Keenan Allen limited. Rome Odunze, new addition with the hip. That's different from the knee issue he had a couple of weeks ago, so keep an eye on that. And Kari Blasingame dealing with a knee and a hand issue, but up to limited now. We'll see if he's able to go this week. Coming up next, we got some Rams injury updates to tend to, including Cooper Kupp. But first, a word from our sponsor. Today's show is sponsored by Mando. I've been telling you about the whole body deodorant for a while. My personal favorite product is the deodorant wipes from Mando because you can rub these all over your body and you're going to be smelling good as new. Maybe you're out and about, out on a run, don't have time to get in a shower. Well, that's where Mando comes into play. I've been using several of their products for several months, and these wipes have you covered if you're on the move. Mando is clinically proven to control odor for up to 72 hours. It is safe for your entire body, your pits, your package, your feet, everywhere in between. It stops odor before it starts, and it's available in 4 cologne quality scents: Bourbon Leather, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and Clover Woods. Don't be the smelly guy in your group. Check out Mando's products today, including the deal we're offering, which is the starter pack. It comes with the solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and more. And you can get $5 off with code CHAT at shopmando.com. Of the starter pack only, $5 off with code CHAT at shopmando.com. It's the best bang for your buck with Mando. Link is in the comments and in the description, as is the promo code. Check out Mando today. Looks like Cooper Kupp not going to play this week as he's still dealing with that ankle issue. The Rams have tried to avoid putting him on IR, and they're going to continue to do that, it looks like. But not expected to play on Sunday. That certainly helps the Bears out. And for the guys on their 53, they're mostly healthy outside of Kupp, but a lot of key guys on IR. Puka Nacua on IR. Steve Avila, Jonah Jackson, Joe Noteboom, 3 of their starting offensive linemen on IR. Roschon Johnson, one of their starting safeties. Darius Williams, one of their corners. I mean, the fact that this team beat the 49ers last week, I know they're a little banged up too, that just speaks to Sean McVay and Matt Stafford. The Rams have several starters out. I mean, 3 offensive linemen, 2 receivers, and a DB. That's at least 6 of their 22 starters. If you can't win this game, I get you got a couple new guys out as well, but that's pretty bad. If A, on the Niners last week, and B, if the Bears can't find a way here. I mean, that's just more evidence that your coaching staff just isn't good enough, if we're being completely honest. Who you got in this matchup? Type CHI for the Chicago Bears or LAR for the Los Angeles Rams. Let us know in the comment section down below. CHI for Bears or LAR for Rams. Talk a little Justin Fields as he rips us a little strong, but kind of ripped the Bears as he joined Cam Heyward's podcast to compare Chicago and Pittsburgh and a variety of other things. I've seen new clips from this emerge. I haven't been able to listen to the whole episode yet. But the thing that's made the rounds, and you probably saw the clip on my Twitter at @HGramNFL, they asked him, better coaches, Chicago or Pittsburgh? And before Heyward even finished the question, he said, Pittsburgh, it's not even close. He was also asked about better teammates. He said Pittsburgh, but what's he going to say? Chicago when he's talking to 2 of his Pittsburgh teammates? I think him and the guys in Chicago got along great and still do. But yeah, a couple of thoughts here. One, of course he's going to say Pittsburgh across the board when he's doing a podcast on his teammate's show. But it's also true. I mean, let's be real. Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy, which is what Justin Fields dealt with. Matt Nagy the year before, too. Or Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith. I'll take Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith every day of the week, twice on Sunday. But I will say, if you listen to how he answered that one compared to the other ones, he answered it really quick. It was like a little jab, yeah, I'm gonna kind of make a point here. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. I actually just saw a clip just a few moments ago that he was asked about Caleb Williams, and he said he first saw him in high school, and he said he was by far the best quarterback at this camp he attended. And he said the second best one he saw there was actually J.J. McCarthy, but nothing but high praise for Caleb, so that's pretty cool. But, yeah, I mean, look, you're seeing it across the league. Coaching matters. Coaching matters. And it's more than fair to question the Bears' coaching. It just is. When Malik Willis can look the way he's looked with the Green Bay Packers and the Bears are looking the way they are with Shane Waldron, it's what's going on here? What's the disconnect between the coaching and the players? So hopefully that gets ironed out, and it's got to get ironed out fast because you got some big games coming up. All right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to the latest news and injury updates here on Chicago Bears Now. We got you covered on all things Bears every single day, so subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 103,000 subs ASAP. Abdullah with the FGB Super Chat. Appreciate you, Abdullah. It's always FGB, baby. Ultra Instinct. Sign Zacch Martin, Ryan Kelly, draft the left tackle and right guard in 25. I mean, look, I think the Bears have 70-something million in cap space heading into the offseason. If they cut Nate Davis, that's another $9 million, so it's going to be over 80. I would sign the best guard on the open market for sure and do whatever it takes. If Zacch Martin's that guy, give him $20 million a year. Give him 2-3 year deal, $20 million. You're gonna have to do that. And if Tevin keeps playing like this, you're gonna have to replace him too. So, you're gonna have to load up. And then, I think you're gonna have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, trade deadline dependent. We'll see if Ryan Poles gets aggressive at the deadline this year or not. But I think offensive line has to be a major priority this offseason. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, no, especially the interior. I think you nailed it right on the head. I mean, there have been, up and down play, or there has been up and down play, I should say, from both Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, but that interior needs to get fixed.
And I also saw, too, when I saw Darnell Wright's got a back issue, I was like, I think this might explain some stuff. Because he hasn't been quite as agile this season on tape, and I feel like his power hasn't been quite as good. Well, if you got a back issue, I mean, that explains a lot. That's how you anchor in a lot of ways. So if Wright can get healthy, I still think he's a good piece over there at right tackle. Braxton Jones next year will be in the final year of his deal, so there's a left tackle you really like. I think you'd have to consider that. Also, where does Karan Amagaji fit into the fold? Like, I kind of wonder, especially if this season does go south, which we hope it doesn't, but at some point, do you get him in there and see what he can do? It seems like Darnell is going to play this week after not practicing yesterday. He was limited today, so I would expect he rallies to play at right tackle. But if for some reason he's out, Colin, I'd take my chances to see what the rookie could do rather than kicking Matt Pryor out there and going back to Nate Davis at right guard. Like, to me, if I'm the Bears, I already know I'm cutting Nate Davis next year. So unless it's an absolute emergency, I'm not playing them anymore because I'd rather play guys that have a chance to be a part of this thing moving forward.
And, figure out what they are, 100%. Yeah. And, I agree with you. I think it's, desperate times call for desperate measures. I mean, desperate's a interesting word to use right now. Some Bears fans might say it, but definitely would like to see some changes made on the O-line.
Yeah, no doubt. Bryant, DeAndre Swift played great with us. Y'all O-line just can't block for a sheet. True. Poles got to be the most overrated GM in the league. I mean, is the national narrative on Poles like he's a top 5 GM? I think people like him. I mean, look, the trade with Carolina has given him a lot of leeway because he just bent the Panthers over. Let's be honest. But yeah, he's had some misses. The Claypool was a miss. The Valus pick wasn't a good one. I don't know if go most overrated GM in the league. Like, I don't. It'd be one thing if there was like some survey that had him as a top 5 GM. Yeah. But I think he's done more than enough that if you fire Matt Eberflus, I think he's done enough where you would give him a second crack at hiring a head coach. Whereas I look at the Giants, like if Dable goes down, like I would not give Joe Shane that power to hire a second coach.
Yep.
Like I think Dable has actually done a better job at his job than Shane has. So. Whereas here it's clearly the opposite. Like Ryan Poles has done a better job than Matt Eberflus has as the head coach.
I would agree.
But the defense, he's not the defensive coordinator. Like I'm so sick of hearing that. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions on the show. It's hashtag Bears or Super Chat to get your questions on the show for a mailbag. We appreciate it. We'll flash this real quick from Abdullah. FLA. Big game, man. If you can get to 2-2, you can steady the waters a little bit here. The opportunities are still there, but I'll say this too, Colin. You lose Sunday, not only are you 1-3, this division, you can be like out of play pretty quick here. Yeah. Like if the Vikings win and you lose, you're 3 back a month in. I mean, that's a lot to make up, considering the schedule's only going to get tougher. I mean, I guess you play them twice head-to-head, so that would help potentially, but not great, man.
No, it's not. And the fact that FGB is basically not skipped a beat since Malik Willis has gotten in there. Detroit, I mean, they've had their ups and downs, but I think once they realized who they were against Arizona, they looked fine. And yeah, you mentioned the Vikings, one of 2 teams in the NFC that's undefeated. So
here's the question: it's Vikings-Packers this week.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is better for the Bears for who wins?
That's a great question.
Because sure, you don't want a team to get to 4-0, but if the Packers win, all of the other 3 teams could be 3-1, and you could be 1-3. I mean, that's because it's one thing to be chasing down one team who has like built a gap, but if you're 2 games back a month in of all 3 of the other teams, you're having to get help from multiple teams to catch up. So.
Right.
I don't know. I think you could almost argue that you'd rather Minnesota win and then just at some point you hope they hit the skids a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, again, just losing that game last week is just – it's as brutal as it gets in the NFL. I mean, Anthony Richardson played like a below-average college player and you lost. I mean, it was bad.
Yep.
Get those questions in. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat. Get your questions answered on the show. Hashtag Bears or Super Chat. And we'll take as many of your questions as we can. Someone says Justin Fields is 3-0. He is. I think they're like 28th in most offensive categories, but they're They're doing he's doing what they're asking him to do. All right, we'll get into this mailbag shortly. All right, coming up, we're going to take some mailbag questions. So use hashtag Bears or Super Chat. I'm Harrison Graham. This is Chicago Bears Now. I didn't want to get to this news that dropped on Thursday that the Bears have signed former draft pick. Remember, they drafted Travis Bell last year to the practice squad. A spot freed up per Brad Biggs because Sam Roberts was placed on the injured reserve list for practice squad players. He must have suffered an injury in practice or something like that. So Travis Bell is back, and if you remember, Poles absolutely loves this guy. His story, his character, all that stuff. I'm not sure how much he factors in on the field, but I will say this. Some defensive linemen have been nicked up this week. Billings missed a practice, so depending on who's available and depending on when you're watching this, Bears might be down a couple of defensive linemen. Zacch Pickens is still banged up, so this could be a situation where he's a game day call-up on Sunday. So, I think part of this is a sentimental play. Poles really likes the guy. And, two, they might actually need some help on game day against the L.A. Rams. So wanted to pass that news along before we got to your questions. And this is why you subscribe to the channel, because we cover all the latest Bears news, rumors. We take your questions on these mailbags and cover a whole lot more with my latest reaction and analysis to everything surrounding this football team. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel today. All right, hashtag Bears from a bunch of, I think those are Chinese letters. Who should the Bears draft when it comes time? The best offensive lineman available. And then you should probably do it again. I don't know. Obviously, it's too early to say. There's different directions you should go, but I think right now, if you were like Harrison, you can only pick one position group in the first round, no matter who's available. I'd be like, yeah, offensive line. Like, you got to protect Caleb Williams. DC Viper, does Swift get benched? And if so, should he stay as the third running back on the depth chart? He is not a number one on this team. Also, start Roschon moving forward. I would start Roschon for sure this week, and if he plays well, I'd keep doing it. Especially if the O-line is going to struggle. At least he can break some tackles, fall forward. And yeah, like Swift, I would have him probably as the third back right now, behind Roschon as the top guy and Herbert is the 2. I would guess he still has at least somewhat of a role, especially in passing situations. But, I think you got to reduce his role at this point in time. Predict the score of Bears versus Rams down in the comment section down below. Get your score predictions in. Let us know who you think is going to win and what the final score is going to be. From Tim Griffin, is there any team out there needing a running back so we can trade for an offensive lineman for? What, so like flip Khalil Herbert for a lineman? I mean, any of your backs you would trade aren't going to be worth a ton. So if you're looking for a high-level lineman, I mean, you would still have to add a significant draft pick, I would say. But, could you get like a serviceable guard or something like that for Khalil Herbert, depending on the team? Maybe. That could be possible. It's definitely not impossible. Nick Grimes, hypothetical, Raiders, Giants, Dolphins, come calling, say they will give you their best lineman for Bagent. Are you calling any of them back? See, the only problem with this, Nick, is like, if a team wants Bagent as their quarterback, why would they trade their best offensive lineman? They have to protect that quarterback. And this is what I keep trying to tell you guys when you ask about lineman trades. Like, yeah, they happen every once in a while. Like Ezra Cleveland was a midseason lineman trade, but typically for good ones, that's an offseason play because NFL teams are not in the business of trading good offensive linemen, especially in the middle of the season. Like, they don't want to do that. Why? There's not that many good offensive linemen out there. Like, if there were, you wouldn't see the quarterback play and the offensive overall play be down. That's the biggest issue with offenses right now is the O-line play is not very good. So when you have good ones, you keep them and you pay them. That's why guards were getting $100 million in free agency last year. All right, today's show sponsored by BetUS. You want to bet on the Bears this weekend or against them or check out any other matchups in the NFL or college football? Check out BetUS today. Go to chatsports.com/Bears. Use promo code BEARDOWN, all one word, to get started with BetUS. They will get you a 125% deposit bonus. Put down $100, give you $125 for free. It's the best deal out there. Chatsports.com/Bears. Look at the line in this one. Bears actually a favorite, 1.5 points. It was 2.5, so money coming in on the Rams from the public. Over under at 40.5, so they're basically saying it's 21-19 type of game. I could certainly see it. Chatsports.com/Bears, promo code BEARDOWN to get that 125% deposit bonus. Make some money by getting started with BetUS today. Matt Nagy, how hot is Eberflus' seat if they lose to the Rams? For me, it would be scalding. In the building, I don't know. How does it look this week? Do they get blown out? Do they lose a close one? Like, what if they lose, I don't know, they lose 17-13 and the offense is terrible? Maybe Eberflus just demotes Shane Waldron, right? And gives Thomas Brown the keys to the offense. But I think regardless, his seat would heat up because he's the head coach at the end of the day. How hot would it be? I'd just be guessing, but I think it would start to really warm up if they lose this game. At home, if they lose at home, think about the Boo Birds coming out at Soldier Field. Whew, that Panthers game, you want to talk about pressure? That would be a lot of pressure in Week 5. Vashi, early stat prediction for Caleb on Sunday. I mean, look, I like what he did throwing the football last week. I don't think he'll throw for 360 again, but well in the 200s. The main thing I'm hoping for is to get the turnovers down. Now, I don't want him to stop being aggressive and being confident, but 2 turnovers 2 weeks ago, 3 last week. Can it be 2 at most, 1 or less ideally? Yeah, like maybe he throws 1 pick or something like that. But mid-60s percentage. Throw for 200 plus, couple of touchdowns. Like if he threw for 240, 2 scores and 1 pick, I'd be pretty happy. Be a solid game. Who scores the Bears' first touchdown on Sunday? If you had to predict it, what is the first touchdown for the Bears? Or maybe you're ultra pessimist and you don't think they find the end zone. I've seen games where they haven't. Let us know in the comment section right now. Jacob Savani, odds 1-10. Ben Johnson leaves Detroit for a head coaching gig. He's clearly taking a patient approach, right? Like, I think he had a good shot at that Washington job last year before he turned down that second interview or whatever it was. If the Lions are good again, which offense a little off to a slow start, but I'm still a Ben Johnson believer. If they make a deep run again and teams are interested, you would think he would pounce at that. Would he want to coach Caleb Williams and the Bears? You'd think that'd be a pretty good opportunity for him to coach a quarterback of this caliber, but I don't know. It's hard to say right now. Zacch, fine. Any buyer's remorse with Caleb? At what point does that become a relevant conversation? Honestly, I don't see how that could become a conversation at all in year 1. Unless Jaden Daniels wins the MVP. Which, look, Jaden Daniels up to this point, sure. Has he played better? I guess. Yeah, I'd have to say yes. They're also asking him to do significantly less. Watch the 2 play. I would challenge you guys to go watch a full game of Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams on the same day so your mind is fresh. Caleb is having to do way more at the line of scrimmage, which I actually like that the Bears are doing that. Like, throw him in the deep end in that regard. Have him make checks, set protections. Jaden's hardly doing any of that. And 2, the Commanders can run the ball. And 3, I'm a Cliff Kingsbury guy. I would have been cool if they hired him. I was higher on him the most when they interviewed him. But his offense is kind of dumbed down for the NFL level. It's a lot of goes, a lot of quick throws. They attacked the middle a decent amount this past week, but I just this discourse 3 weeks in that they chose the wrong guy, can we see this play out a little bit more? I mean, we're not even out of September, and people are like, oh, they chose the wrong quarterback. There's no way of knowing that 3 weeks in. Ultra Instinct with the super chat. Appreciate the 5. Does Waldron look bad due to his scheme and play calling, or is it bad O-line performance that made his scheme look bad? I think it's both. I think the O-line is really struggling, and I think Chris Morgan is a culprit in that. And I also think Shane Waldron has made some bad calls, and end of the day, he's in charge of the offense, so the O-line play falls on his shoulders too. So I think it all works together, and it's not working well right now. Traquan Jones, of these offensive coordinators, Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnson, Adam Stevenich, and Joe Brady, who would you take as head coach? If I had to rank them, Stevenich would be last. He's the Packers guy. He doesn't even call plays. A non-play calling offensive guy is off the board for me. It's not an option. I'd go Johnson 1. Brady and Slow could be 2A, 2B. I'd want to see how the rest of the year plays out. And then Stedovich, a distant fourth. Savage Gorillas, do you think Bates will be the starting center once he's back from IR? I think that'll be under consideration. I really do. Coleman Shelton has not been very good. He's just not very powerful. Like, there's multiple clips every week where he's just getting thrown on his ass. So I think what we've probably learned there is he's a serviceable starter. I know he started most of the last 2 years with the Rams, but that's mostly because Brian Allen was injured, and he was fine there. And guess what? A guy like McVay can scheme around his weaknesses as a player, whereas Chris Morgan, Shane Waldron, they have not been able to do that. So I think he's a good backup. Don't think he's a starter. Ryan Bates, is he a good starting center? Hasn't played the position much. I know they were going to give him that opportunity, but I would say if in 2 weeks when he's eligible to return, if Coleman Shelton's still struggling, I would consider giving him that opportunity. Scott Waja, if AR is so bad, why isn't the defense getting more heat? Well, a couple things. One, I actually think the defense was sneaky, not that great. Like once he threw that second pick, it was pretty obvious they were just going to run the ball, and they did, and they had success, and they wore the Bears down despite the Bears having time of possession plus 10 minutes. So don't think it was a great defensive performance. Two, at the end of the day, you still held them to 21 points, and those final 7 was on that Caleb strip sack where they started at like your 20. So, like, even if the defense had a bad day, 21 points, that's manageable. Like, if you're holding a team to the high teens, low 20s, that's a very winnable game in the NFL. So, sure, Scott, I don't think it was a great performance from the defense, but they still got 2 takeaways, and you held them to 21 points. Like, you would take that on most Sundays. Michael Ellis, so how did Shane look like an okay in Seattle getting Geno Smith to look respectable? Then he comes here and we look like a joke on offense. This is why I'm still holding out some hope, although my patience is wearing thin already, because we've seen Shane at least be solid. Now, maybe he's not as good as we thought he could be or as good as we hoped he would be, but they were 11th and 16th in DVOA offensively the last 2 years with Geno Smith. And hit and miss offensive line play. Like, this should not be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Now, rookie quarterback, struggling offensive line, a couple injuries. Like, yeah, let's give it a few more weeks potentially here. But, yeah, it's a fair question, Michael. And it's, it'll make people who throw stuff out there like the Bears are cursed get some legs because, I mean, guy comes here and he looks like he's never called plays before. It's like, okay, man, that's pretty brutal to say the least. Appreciate all the questions. If you got more, it's at HGramNFL, Twitter and Instagram. DMs are wide open. Fire away. I'll try to get back to you guys as soon as possible at HGramNFL on both Instagram and Twitter. Got Alex. Caleb is the truth. Wake up. We need to support 18. I have not wavered in that at all. Like, if anything, I feel just as good, if not better, about Caleb 3 weeks in because the progression's been linear. Sure, the turnovers have crept up the last couple of weeks. Shit, man. He's dropped back over 100 times in the last 2 games. When you drop back more, the probability of turnovers go up because you're doing more plays, right? Like, if you drop back 24 times versus 49 times, and the guy who dropped back 49 times has 2 turnovers, and the guy who dropped back 24 times has 1 turnover, sure, you could say the guy who had 1 turnover did a better job. Statistically, he really didn't, though, because he only had half the plays where he had a major responsibility. So we got to keep that in mind as well. Adam Downing, doesn't Flus just have to go? He brought no leadership to a lock-win game. What the hell? I mean, it's hard. When you question leadership, it's a little tricky because players continue to be on the record for liking him. And that season last year could have fallen apart. They rallied together. So I don't even really want to make it about his leadership or lack thereof. It's more of he's not that great at in-game management. I think he adjusts well defensively, but his staff as a whole does not. And at the end of the day, he's the head coach. He's got to be held responsible for that. So, and I will say this. I don't know if he can connect well with quarterbacks. I think Justin liked him, but You watch the clips on Hard Knocks. I think Caleb likes him. He's fine with him. But I think behind closed doors, Caleb's probably like, this is my head coach. Like, he doesn't know offense. He's awkward at times. Like, yeah, I don't know, Adam. I would have reset after last year. I said it. Say it again. Think it was a mistake. It is what it is. They may have to reset this year. Abdullah with the 10. Appreciate it. He says, we'll win versus LA. We'll show up versus good teams and suck it against worse teams regardless. 360 by a rookie. Bears QB with the shit O-line. We got our QB no matter how many games we lose. Go Bears. Yeah, I feel good about Caleb. I will say this. The most Bears thing ever, Colin, would be to win this game and then lose to the Panthers. I mean, seriously. Because we'd be like, 2-2. We're going to be 4-2 soon. We'll beat Carolina. We'll go to London, beat the Jags. Bye week. We'll be rolling by then. You really got to take this one drive at a time, one quarter at a time, one game at a time. You really got to be locked in right now. You can't be looking ahead. So, see what happens. Deshaun, unfortunately for Ryan Poles, Executive of the Year isn't an offseason award. Take away the Carolina trade. He's just a conservative Ryan Pace. I mean, I don't even know what that means because their philosophies are so different. But, yeah, look, I mean, it doesn't matter how good you're right in this. Like, Super Bowls, there's a phrase that you can win awards in the offseason with your moves, and, like, that indirectly is true, obviously. But if you get to the season, you're not winning games, doesn't matter. No one's going to care. Like, if 6 years from now Ryan Poles is an assistant GM with insert team and, the Bears have just been this up-and-down team that hadn't done a lot of winning, like, the trade with Carolina will kind of fade away. It'll be more of a talking point in Carolina for how bad it was than it will be in Chicago for how great it was, if that makes sense. Because I think one thing is pretty clear. That trade has set Carolina back big time. But while on paper it looks good for the Bears, it hasn't turned into anything yet. Now, it's still early, but yeah, I think there's some validity there, Deshaun. FGB, though. Wasim, third year of slow starts, should have hired Harbaugh. Yeah, look, we did a video. We had a source, which we don't get sourced info a ton, but when we do, we pass it along. We had a source in Harbaugh's camp that said he was very interested in the Bears. Now, I don't think the interest was mutual. I don't think Kevin Warren would have hired him. I don't think the McCaskies, more importantly, would have hired him, just with his style, wanting more control, and quite frankly, how much he would have cost. The Bears are kind of cheap when it comes to coaches. Like, are they willing to pay someone $15 million per year to be their next head coach? I don't know. Like, how much would a guy like Ben Johnson want? I don't think Vrabel would command that much, but I mean, they gotta pay up.
Let me ask you this too, because you've been very pro hiring Ben Johnson. The way that he handled last offseason, like kind of the negotiations with like the Commanders and just kind of how he went about his business, does that give you pause at all, or do you still? Okay.
Yeah, like that would be something if I was interviewing him, I would hammer away at. Like, what happened last year? Like you'd really have to feel good about that. I'm not even saying he's my top guy. I'm just saying, like, if I know I'm getting his offense, I at least feel good about the pairing with Caleb Williams. Now, can he manage a team? Can he stand in front of the room and be someone that a 53-man locker room respects? That's fair to question. I think any of these offensive OC guys, it would be critical to get a defensive coordinator that's a veteran and an experience, and potentially a head coach. Like, that's what's such a shame about Flus. I know you guys ask me all the time, well, maybe you could stay as DC. Clearly that's not going to happen. But I will say this, a lot of staffs would love to have him as their DC because he's been a head coach before. He will have that experience to lean on and a lot to learn from. And to run your defense, you would trust him completely. So, if you hire a young offensive mind as your head coach, I think getting a veteran defensive guy who's been around, been there, done that. That's why I don't know if he wants to get back into coaching, but like a guy like Leslie Frazier would be good in that regard. Run the defense. He's been a head coach before. He's been around the block. Someone like that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. Speaking of Matt Eberflus, is this a must-win on Sunday? Little preview coming up next. We're going to preview Bears versus Rams coming up on Chicago Bears Now, but I want to hear from you guys. Is this a must-win for Matt Eberflus? Yes or no? Let me know in the comment section down below. Is Sunday against the Rams a must-win for Flus? Yes or no? I'm Harrison Graham. Time to take a look at NFL Week 4 as the Bears host the Rams at Soldier Field, as the battle of 1 and 2 teams will commence at 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 Central this Sunday. And take a look at the Bears' journey so far this season. Got away with murder, if you will, in Week 1. Should not have won that game. Found a way, 24-17 against the Titans. Lost a tight one, 19-13 at Houston, but probably wasn't really that close. Considering the Texans fumbled inside the 5, and a really tough one in Indianapolis. I mean, that's one, if this season goes down, it really, that was probably the turning point. But opportunity to get back to 500 today, or this week, with the win over the Rams. You look at the Bears' upcoming stretch here, it's a pivotal one. We've talked about it all week. Rams, who are super beat up, you get them at home. Panthers, who look better with Andy Dalton, but Adam Thielen's now on IR. They've got limitations on their roster. And then Jags in London, who look like a terrible team with a quarterback who has no confidence right now. So even though it's been ugly, you found a way to steal one against Tennessee. You're 1-2. 4-2 is still on the table, 3-3 at worst. And it all starts Sunday, and that's why it feels like a must-win. This feels like a must-win for Matt Eberflus. You lose Sunday, get to 1-3, all the pressure in the world on your shoulders against Carolina, and you're building the next week. I'm not sure this team could handle it. I really think they got to lock in and find a way to win this game. Now, you look at the latest injury report. This was from Thursday, putting out this episode on Friday from our live show for anyone who missed it. So we'll see if some of these guys practiced on Friday. Kevin Byard was a new addition with the back issue. That's not great. Terell Smith still dealing with that hip. Darrell Taylor has had an illness this week, also listed with the knee injury. We'll see how serious that is. Zacch Pickens with the groin. Andrew Billings with the knee after being limited Wednesday. Did not practice Thursday. Not ideal. And then Marcedes Lewis, his weekly rest day, so nothing really to be concerned about there. These 5 players were limited on Thursday. Darnell Wright with his back. After not practicing Wednesday, that's positive momentum. Braxton Jones with his knee. Keenan Allen with his heel. Hopefully he's tracking toward playing. Roma Dunze, new addition as well with the hip. He was limited. Monitor that. And then Kari Blasingame dealing with that knee and hand issue, so we'll see if he can return after missing the last 2 weeks. For the Rams, Cooper Kupp not expected to play on Sunday. He's still dealing with that ankle sprain, so no Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp as you look at several notable Rams on injured reserve. Nacua, Steve Avila, Jonah Jackson, and Joe Noteboom, 3 of their starting offensive linemen there. John Johnson, a starting DB, and Darius Williams, a corner as well. The guys on the Rams 53 outside of Cooper Kupp are pretty healthy, but they have several starters on IR, so they are nowhere near 100% as a team. All right, let's get to who has the edge in 8 key categories. Head coach, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but, I mean, is there anything that needs to be said? It's clearly the Rams. I mean, Sean McVay is one of the best in the business. Matt Eberflus leaves a lot to be desired as a head coach. Now, the chess match of his offense versus the Bears defense, I think that's an interesting one. But head coach and really coaching as a whole, you'd be moronic to say the Bears have the edge here. Quarterback, love Caleb. It's the Rams, clearly. I mean, Matt Stafford, for my money right now, is the best quarterback in the NFC. He's making it work with not really a healthy team right now. Ton of backup linemen. I think they're on like their 3rd center maybe now, too. It's just been choppy. No Kupp, no Nacua. Higbee not available either, and he's playing pretty well. Caleb's gotten better by the week, but obviously needs to trim down the turnovers. And he's a rookie. Stafford's a vet that's probably going to the Hall of Fame. So, advantage Rams. Skill groups. I think it's actually pretty clearly the Bears with Nacua and Kupp out. Now, if those 2 guys were healthy, that'd be different. And obviously, you'd give the Rams the advantage at running back with Kyren Williams. But the Bears' wide receiver room is notably better. Tight end room as well, with no Higbee for the Rams, is better. So I'll give the Bears the edge there. Offensive line. Push, question mark? I mean, if all were healthy, you'd definitely go the Rams, but they have a bunch of backups in there. It's sad. Based on that, you should think the Bears, and it could play out that way, but it's hard to say the Bears have a better offensive line than anyone right now with the way they've played this year. So push question mark. If the Bears play better, it should be the Bears, given they're playing. The Rams have a bunch of backups out there, but hard to trust Chicago's offensive line currently. Get yourself a Caleb Williams jersey right now at chatsports.com/Caleb. We got the navies, the whites, the oranges all available. They're in stock at chatsports.com/Caleb. That link is available to you in the comments and description of this video. Get yourself a Caleb jersey, chatsports.com/Caleb. All right, let's go to the defense now. Defensive line, I almost put a question mark again. Push feels fair, though. The Bears have had some guys banged up during the week. We'll see who plays, who doesn't. Both the Rams rookies lead rookies in pressures, Braden Fisk and why am I blanking on that? Jared Verse. Thank you, Producer Cullen. They've been pretty solid. I think if the Bears are fully healthy and play to their max capability, they're better on paper, but I'll give it a push here. Linebackers, clearly the Bears. The Rams do not value linebacker. That's why they traded Ernest Jones. Now, they kind of plug and play, and they're serviceable there, but this is a clear advantage for Chicago. And I think the secondary is too, especially with John Johnson out for the Rams now. We'll see on Kevin Byard, obviously, but I still like the Bears secondary over the Rams. In special teams, I'll give the Bears a slight advantage as well. Punting and kicking game a little more steady up to this point in the season. And, when you add a lot of those up, it's advantage Bears. But when you have the disadvantage at coaching and quarterback, that's kind of the equalizer, right? Matt Stafford and Sean McVay, Matt Eberflus and Caleb Williams, who, again, I love Caleb. Like, I'm higher on Caleb than most through 3 weeks. But compared to Stafford, I'll obviously take Stafford in this spot. So, when you have a massive coaching disadvantage, that's tough. And I think we'd all be naive to say that the Bears have the better coaching staff here because, quite frankly, it's not even close. What is your confidence level in the Bears winning this game? Scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not at all, 10 being very. I mean, you'd be kind of silly to go above a 5, right? I mean, you're at home. Vegas has the Bears favored. So, maybe it's like a 4 or 5. It's another 50-50 game, just like last week was. So, we'll see if the Bears can play a little bit better. Coming up next, we'll get to the Bears' keys to victory, and then I'll get my final score prediction for you guys as well. But I want to remind you, we will be live on Sunday for Bears versus Rams. So be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us. Should be going live 10:45 a.m. Eastern time again for a 12 noon kickoff. So if you see this thumbnail, you are in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and join us here on the channel. All right, keys to victory for Chicago. Stop Kyren Williams. With how beat up the Rams are at receiver and tight end, yes, Stafford can still beat you, obviously, even if he's one-dimensional. It's just a lot harder if Kyren Williams can't get going. Tutu Atwell is the Rams wide receiver 1 right now. And he's speed demon. He can make some big plays, but I'll take my chances there. Slow down Kyren, keep him under 4 yards per carry, and make Stafford and these backup receivers beat you. Number 2, find some. I'm not even greedy anymore. Balance offensively. It's not as egregious as last week was statistically, although the Bears are so bad at running the ball against the Colts. The Colts are no longer the worst rushing attack in the NFL. The Bears are 31st in rushing, 72.7 yards per game. And it seems like they're making a change. That report from Jeremy Fowler, that Roschon Johnson is expected to get an extended look. To me, that kind of signals he's probably going to start this game, which I think is the right move. Rams are 30th in rush defense, 177 per game. You should be able to rush for well over 100 yards, but I thought that was true last week when the Colts were giving up, let me check numbers again, 237 per game through 2 weeks. You ran for 63 yards and 28 carries. So I feel like this is generous by me, but I think with the change to Roschon, maybe that sparks something. Can you hit 85 yards? That's about half of what the Rams allow. 85 yards rushing on Sunday. It's not even half, actually. 0 for over, U for under. The most the Bears have rushed for this year is 84 in week 1. What do you think? 0 for over, you for under? If you're under, it's got to be a tough day. Number 3, cut down the turnovers. And this has not been squarely a Caleb problem. I think if you look at the 3 last week, you could only really put one squarely on his shoulders. That late ball to the sideline just can't happen. That's about as easy as it gets for a DB in the NFL. But the second one was catchable by Rome. The defender kind of grabbed his arm too. Could have been a PI call. I'm going to kind of call that a neutral one. And then the strip sack, Cole Kmet and Marcedes Lewis didn't do their job, and it wasn't a great scheme design to have a tight end get stuck one-on-one with Leatu Latu. So, I'm not making this solely about Caleb, but 5 turnovers in 2 games, you got to cut that down. You just do if you're going to win these games. Now, I'd rather him turn the ball over and continue to be aggressive than to go in a shell and just not pull the trigger like we saw all the time with Justin Fields. And I don't think he'll do that. We saw last week he kept firing away. So I'm not too concerned. But ideally, how about 1 turnover this week, right? 2 weeks ago, 3 last week, 1 this week. Like, that would be good progress in that regard while still hopefully being productive in the passing game. Get Stafford off his spot. If Matt Stafford, who can throw off platform, obviously, but you'd rather make him do that than just stand back there and carve you up. If your defensive line could generate some pressure, some of these guys a little banged up throughout the week. We'll see who goes, who doesn't. But if you can get him off his spot, if a guy like Montez Sweat can have a big game, you're playing against a bunch of backup linemen. Like, this should be a game where Flus doesn't have to blitz a ton, which is what he really wants to do. He wants to get home with 4, and if you can, and you can generate consistent pressure, that's going to give you a chance to be successful. And then lastly, and it sounds silly, dumb, because it is, but eliminate the dumb. Stop doing stupid shit. Coaching staff, stop with silly play calls in certain spots. Flus, don't challenge a guy if he's got 6 feet in bounds. Let's not have a delay of game out of a TV timeout. Like, it's been something every single game. Like, you just can't have these JV mistakes and win in the NFL. It just cannot happen. So eliminate that stuff. You're playing at home. The environment's in your favor. Eliminate the silly things, and that obviously helps as well. So with that being said, get your score predictions in. Bears versus Rams at Soldier Field. Who you got and what is the score going to be? I can't pick the Bears after last week. I just can't do it. I saw the Rams beat the 49ers with a lot of guys banged up. Now, I don't think that means they're going to blow out the Bears. I don't think the Rams will play as good, but they don't have to play as good. The Bears aren't as good as the 49ers. I'm going Rams 23-20. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe a little reverse jinx idea here, but they got to prove to me they can win this game. And I'll ask you this, and I'll challenge you this. When is the last time Matt Eberflus won a game where on paper he was clearly the inferior coach? It's been a while. It has been a while. So I'm going to go Rams here. And if I'm right, and I hope I'm not, I think the heat is going to ramp up in Chicago because fans, the organization, the higher-ups, they're not going to stand for this much longer. And 1-3 is not what we signed up for with this schedule. All right, there you have it, my Bears-Rams preview. Is it a must-win for Flus? If it is, well, I picked against them, so we'll see how it all shakes out on Sunday. We will be live an hour and 15 minutes before kickoff, so subscribe and join us. Jorge Diaz, would you rather have Jerry Reinsdorf by the Bears or Caleb Williams end up being a bust? I mean, Reinsdorf. I don't want Caleb to be a bust. Now, Reinsdorf stinks, but I mean, it's not like the McCaskies are awesome as owners. So, those are 2 really bad options. The White Sox and the Bulls are a joke. But the Bears have kind of been a joke. So, I can't sign up for anything that says Caleb's a bust.
No, at least with Reinsdorf, you still have the opportunity to, potentially be good.
Yeah.
You would just...
You don't want your chances,
no.
But at least there's a chance. If Caleb's a bust, you got no chance.
Yeah, it's just, I don't want to open that.
Abdullah, appreciate the 20, man. What? No shots today? Usually on our midweek shows, we try not to drink. I'll tell you what, Abdullah, for that 20 to start our watch party Sunday, Colin and I will rip one to start the watch party. Quite frankly, we may need to start drinking early this week.
Yeah.
Because Ooh, it could get tough. It could get tough. Appreciate it, though, Abdullah. Wasim, if we're waiting for them to pay a coach, we're doomed. Been a Bears fan since Jack Party. Now the Bears have never paid coaches. Yeah, I mean, look, like, you can win without having a high paid coach. A lot easier when you pay big, though. Like, the Chargers have a chance to be really good because they paid their head coach. Like, it just helps. And that's where teams can separate, too, because in a salary cap sport, coaching staffs don't have a cap.
Yep.
You can have as many staff members you want. You can pay as much as you want. That's why the Bengals, even though they've had a nice little run here, that's where they're going to have issues long term. Like, if they fire Zacch Taylor, they're not hiring a $20 million coach.
No.
Like, they're just going to hire another Zacch Taylor. Like, they'll probably get Joe Brady, which might work out. Him and Burrow obviously have a good relationship, but that's no guarantee. So, there's a reason the Chiefs are awesome. They pay their GM and they pay their head coach a lot of money, and they're really good at what they do. So, yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how much the Bears are willing to pay, but time will tell. Wasim, again, we hired Mark Tress. I mean, that really, when you look back at it, to hire a CFL head coach to be your head coach in the NFL, it's one thing to bring him in as your OC, and I know he had been an OC before, but that is outrageous. Like, imagine if that happened today in a larger social media era. Hey, we're hiring a CFL head coach to be our head coach.
Yeah. I
mean, that is embarrassing when you really think about it. It really, really is. For Chicago, I mean, it's one thing if Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Chicago? Come on, man. Refrigerator repair. Will Waldron call a play that's not a screen pass to the right? I hope so. I hope he calls a lot of new plays because the ones he's called so far don't seem to work that well. All right, appreciate everybody for tuning in. We all got to recoup this weekend and get ready for a long Sunday. Hopefully it's a fun long Sunday because if it's not, it's just not going to be great. Someone said the Raiders paid Gruden $100 million, and they're considered cheap. So you gotta pay up in this league, man. Get those final score predictions in. Colin, you got a prediction here?
Oh man, I think I'm going to go Bears.
Oh, he's picking the Bears.
Bears 24. Rams 21.
All right. I hope you're right. They've made it hard for me to pick them.
I also just can't pick the Rams out of spite. So
that's fair. That's fair. DC 32-17 Bears. Savage 34-17 Bears. DC said 32-17 Rams. Excuse me. Bears 24-12 from Joshua. Yeah, I got Rams 23-20. I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I got right now. All right, he's calling. I'm Harrison. Thanks for tuning in. Bear down, and we will see you guys Sunday. Peace.